In this video, I will analyze the motive of captivity shared between Inception, a movie written and directed by Christopher Nolan in 2010, and Rip Van Winkle, an American short story written by Washington Irving and published in 1818. I will also demonstrate how the captivity of the two works' protagonists show that anybody can be held captive by their circumstances and feel like they don't have any means for escape from where they are to where they wish to be. In his classic American short story, Rip Van Winkle, Washington Irving was able to bring creative life to the motive of captivity and create a man bound against his will by his own existence. To summarize the story, Rip was a villager in British colonial America. He was married and owned a small farm. He felt trapped by the constant nagging of his wife, the burden of working his land for profit, and the pressure of raising children. Eventually, Mr. Van Winkle decided to take a day off for himself. He ended up wandering into the Catskill Mountains. He made some new friends, got very drunk, and quickly passed out. When he woke up, Rip discovered that his beard had grown very long, his gun was rusted over, and his dog was gone. He later discovered a revolution had taken place. His wife was long dead, and his children had grown up. This information even helps us date the period in which the story was written, which was shortly following the Revolutionary War. Rip had successfully escaped all of his woes, and he was absolutely thrilled about it. Mr. Van Winkle finally lived the burden-free life he had always longed for. This unrealistic escape adds to the idea of the motive that there are some forms of captivity that can only be escaped by living reality or allowing time to pass. In contrast, Christopher Nolan shows us that what we call an ordinary life in and of itself would be an escape for those who can't seem to achieve it. However, similarly, in the movie, the passage of time is the only thing that fixes a dissatisfied life, albeit through fantastical and fictional means. This is how Christopher Nolan presented his own take on captivity nearly 200 years after Washington Irving in his popular American film Inception. The film's main protagonist, a man named Cobb, is a rather remarkable individual, the antithesis of Rip Van Winkle, with many tools, talents, and abilities, which he employs in the service of governments and corporations to perform espionage. This is reflective of its time period, which is in fact filled with corrupt businesses, government, and espionage. However, this remarkable line of work led Cobb to captivity. He was on the run from haunting memories of his wife's suicide, his own government, several of his previous employers, and most of all, his own guilt. His only desire was to return to a normal life with his children. This desire builds into an idea that the ordinary and unexciting is the true escape from the extraordinary stressors that come with living in such a way. Without analysis, it would appear that the only similarity Inception and Rip Van Winkle share is that both their protagonists spend far too much time sleeping rather than living. However, this is not the case. Despite being different art forms, they both tell stories in similar ways, and therefore have the same formal characteristics that have remained constant between these time periods. They share very large similarities in their overall plot, characters, conflicts, and denouement, with many similar themes and most of all their common motive of captivity. They each begin with characters who feel themselves to be held completely captive by circumstance, including by their governments, their work, and oddly enough, most of all, their wives. Both men find an escape from their worlds through large amounts of sleep, eventually leading to very similar denouements in which both Cobb and Rip Van Winkle escaped the captivity of the worlds they previously lived in and arrived in the world they wished they had lived. They even both managed to return to a relatively normal and happy life with their children, without the burden of their wives. In conclusion, despite our protagonists escaping diametrically opposite things, there are many levels at which these two artworks are able to connect and show the audience their motive of captivity and apply the message to real life, that everybody is captive to something. In addition, by analyzing the similarities and differences between the plots, climaxes, and denouements of these two works, the metaphors employed, as well as the circumstances of each protagonist, we are able to gain more insight about what it means to feel captive. According to these works, we can be held captive by the ordinary or the extraordinary, by stress and excitement or by boredom and fatigue. In short, it is teaching us that by depending on our perception, anything can keep us captive. This may be why both authors chose to use sleep as a metaphor to represent escape from the stressors that constantly besiege everyone.